Assassins!
I'm Brooke.
And I'm Cami.
And welcome to Bookish Realms. Today's episode kicks off our Throne of Glass series deep dive, starting with chapters 16 through 24. For this episode, the chapter summaries and character discussion are spoiler-free, but the rest of the pod does include spoilers for all of Throne of Glass. This podcast is for mature audiences only.
Chapter summaries. Let's get into some chapter summaries. As a reminder, this is a non-spoiler section, so if you haven't finished Throne of Glass, you can listen to this section. Chapter 16. Celaena's morning run with Chaol takes a sharp and gross turn when she collapses from pure exhaustion. Cue the puke. As she's heaving, Chaol spots the scars on her back and, in true Chaol fashion, asks, "What did you do to deserve those?" Yikes, Chaol. But he sort of makes up for it later in the combo. Things only get crazier when, during training, a fellow champion makes a bold break for freedom, only to catch an arrow to the throat. Yeah, the competition's getting deadly. Chapter 17. Dorian is so over royal duties and his mother's relentless matchmaking. His mood lifts a bit when he sees Celaena in the training room. Fierce, graceful, and let's be honest, totally unpredictable. His little crush is growing, and with Princess Nehemia also in the picture, his stress levels are through the roof. The chapter wraps up with a sword duel challenge from Dorian to Nehemia. Spoiler, she's no damsel in distress. Chapter 18. Celaena's POV serves up plenty of drama as she watches Dorian play teacher, fencing with Nehemia. She's torn between her attraction for Dorian and her general frustration toward her situation. Chaol interrupts, telling her to rest up for the upcoming test, but Celaena is pissy and annoyed, throwing him an "I hate you" during their argument. Tensions and emotions are climbing. Chapter 19. Kaltain, dolled up to catch Dorian's eye, is instead stuck dealing with Duke Parrington's not-so-subtle advances. Gross. But she plays along, fishing for any juicy gossip on Dorian's potential marriage plans. Meanwhile, Dorian and Chaol are busy chatting about Celaena and the strange death of the Eye Eater. They brush it off and head to dinner, leaving us feeling like something dark is lurking. Chapter 20. Still reeling from her spat with Chaol, Celaena sits at the pianoforte, playing a hauntingly beautiful tune. Intrigued, Dorian slips in and joins her, sparking some flirty banter. She lets her guard down just enough to share a little bit about her past love, Sam, and Dorian starts seeing her in a whole new light. Chapter 21. Celaena goes full beast mode in the Capture the Flag test, scaling a castle wall like it's no big deal. But things get dangerous fast. A competitor falls to his death, and another champion tries to shove Nox off a gargoyle. Celaena risks it all to save him, only to face Grave, who isn't done yet. He pulls a knife and tries to cut their rope. Chapter 22. Celaena and Nox survive their fall, but the victory goes to Cain. Chaol tries to be supportive, but Celaena's thoughts drift back to her brutal training with Arobynn, and she's not in the mood for comfort. Their banter lightens the mood briefly, but it's soon shattered by the news of another murder, reminding Celaena that the stakes in this competition keep climbing. Chapter 23. Chaol rudely interrupts one of Celaena's nightmares to remind her about Samhain, which we totally thought was pronounced Samhain thanks to the audiobook. Oops. It's a holiday that slips Celaena's mind in the chaos of training. Despite his gruff reminder, she's kind of intrigued by the festivities. Meanwhile, Dorian is juggling court drama and his growing feelings for Celaena, while Celaena and Nehemia discover some weird word marks and make a secret pact to learn each other's languages. Bestie vibes only! Chapter 24. Celaena stumbles upon a hidden passage behind a tapestry in her room that leads out of the castle, perfect for a quick escape, but she decides to stick around for now. Later, a tipsy and broody Dorian swings by for a late-night visit, only for Chaol to show up and kick him out. The real surprise, Chaol gives Celaena an amethyst ring from the party, totally out of character for our usually serious captain. He seems just as confused as we are about this sudden gesture.
Character discussion. Here, we'll cover what we've learned about each main character and track their character development. This section is also spoiler-free. Let's start with our main characters. Celaena. When Celaena shows up at Endovier, the notorious slave camp, she gets a welcome that's anything but warm. Picture this. She's dragged into the camp, tied to a whipping post, and given 21 lashes. Yikes. And it's not just the physical pain that gets her. It's the emotional hit, too. She reflects on it and says, "No one deserves to be whipped like an animal." Her first night there is filled with dread and uncertainty, as she's left worrying whether she'll even make it to the next morning. But Celaena's story doesn't end with just physical scars. Oh no, she's got layers. Music used to be her happy place. She played the pianoforte and loved it so much. It was her escape and a source of healing. She even describes how playing the piano can break and heal and make everything seem possible and heroic. This musical side of her adds a beautiful contrast to the tough stuff she's been through. And let's not forget about her epic training saga. Celaena's mentor didn't hold back, bringing in experts from all over to train her in fighting and poisons. But here's the kicker. She didn't find out until she was 14 that she had to pay back every bit of that training. It's like being a courtesan, working off every coin spent on her training. Talk about a raw deal. We see a lot more of Celaena's vulnerable side in these chapters. She has a heart of gold and does what she thinks is right, which is often at odds with how the people around her would like to view her. She is not a cold-blooded, careless assassin. She's a bitch with a backstory. Cale Westfall. When Cale makes his grand entrance, he's not exactly winning any bestie awards. One example of this is when Celaena is talking about the brutal scars she got on her back the first day in Endovier, and Cale's response is basically, "What did you do to deserve it?" Ouch. Instead of showing sympathy, Cale's first reaction is to question her, which totally highlights his initial cold and no-nonsense attitude. It's like he's all about the tough love, but not so much on the love part. And if you thought that was intense, wait until you hear about his reaction to Celaena and Dorian sparring. Picture this. Celaena is just getting into a friendly sparring session with Dorian, and Cale bursts in like a whirlwind. He's like, "What is this? Why are they sparring?" When Celaena explains, Cale's frustration just erupts. He practically shoves Celaena aside to go have a heated chat with Dorian, and then comes back to Celaena with "the guards will take you to your chambers" attitude. He is a control freak. Cale's early days are all about asserting his dominance and fulfilling his role as captain of the guard. His reactions are often harsh and lacking in empathy, giving us a peek into his internal struggles and rigid nature. He's getting to know Celaena more every day, which makes her more and more human and less cold-blooded assassin in his eyes. Even if Cale doesn't want to admit it, he's also somewhat infatuated with Celaena, which seems to confuse him and make him uncomfortable. Dorian. Dorian is 19 and already feeling the weight of royal expectations crashing down on him. It's clear he's pretty fed up with his options and the whole royal dating thing. Dorian is also super bored with his life. He's tired of the endless parade of women who are more interested in his crown than in actually getting to know him. He admits he's bored of these women, bored of these cavaliers who masquerade as companions, bored of everything. You know who he's not bored of, though? Our girl Celaena. Mr. Dorian is a flirt. He flirts up a storm with her in these chapters. Similarly to Cale, Dorian is thrown off by his attraction to Celaena. He is caught between the knowledge that she's an assassin and the fact that she's a cute girl who he likes to flirt with and talk to, because she's literally just a girl. Dorian's feeling like he's stuck on the outside looking in. Despite being a prince, he's got this nagging sense of not fitting in with all the royal shit. He's got this deep loneliness that's only made bearable by his buddy Cale. Without him, Dorian would be feeling even more isolated. The bromance is strong. So there you have it. Dorian Hivillard is the classic case of a prince who's got everything but feels utterly unfulfilled. Now let's move on to our side characters. Kaltain Rompier is all about playing the long game. She's got her raven black hair perfectly coiled and her skin glowing golden, but it's not just about appearances. This girl has serious plans. So when Duke Parrington, with his hairy, meaty fingers, touches her pristine skin, she doesn't flinch. Instead, she smiles sweetly and asks about his chat with the queen. Sure, it's risky to pry, but Kaltain didn't charm her way into court just to play it safe. She's only here because she's hinted that life could get a lot more interesting once she's out of her father's household. But let's be clear, Kaltain is so over being just another minor lady waiting to be married off. She's tired of the petty games and the easily manipulated fools around her. She's after something bigger, something much more powerful, and she's willing to play the game to get it, one calculated move at a time. One of those moves? Spreading a little lie to Duke Parrington about Prince Dorian being madly in love with Celaena. Kaltain knows exactly what she's doing. She's hoping this juicy tidbit makes its way back to the king, stirring up trouble for Celaena while Kaltain gets one step closer to her true goals. It's all part of the plan, and for Kaltain, it's just another day at court.
Slay.
Period.
World
building. Let's explore this world. Here, we cover the main world building elements that come up in chapters 16 through 24. We'll revisit these places and world building elements in other episodes. Unlike past world building sections, this section is not spoiler free. So if you have not listened to all of Throne of Glass, do not continue.
For this world building section, we're covering the King's Champion Tournament and Samhain, which is what we thought was Sam Hewen. The championship is really the main plot point of Throne of Glass, and the timeline of events in this book are pushed forward through each test. Celaena was the only female competitor out of the 24 competitors. Each competitor was selected by a member of the King's Council. Brollo is the judge of the competition. The tournament lasts 13 weeks with a test happening every week. One competitor is eliminated after each test, either because they came in last, failed to complete the task, or died. The 4 remaining competitors at the end will compete in a duel to win the title. The tests were archery, scaling the side of the castle to reach a flag, stealth, tracking, javelin throwing on horseback, sparring, knife throwing, poisons, and an obstacle course.
Damn.
There are 3 tests that aren't described, and the final test before the duel is canceled since Nox leaves. This leaves 4 remaining champions to duel it out: Celaena, Grave, Renault, and Cain. For this world-building section, we're not going to get into describing the duel since that comes in later chapters. But let's talk about motive. In Chapter 17, Dorian wonders what had his father been thinking when he decided to host this competition. At the end of the first book, we don't know enough to answer this question. The king is not a good guy, so needing someone to do his dirty work is a fine enough motive. Maybe he just wanted some entertainment. The king also had a number 1 pick during this competition, and it wasn't Celaena. The king wanted Cain to win. This is just our speculation, but the king most likely also used this as an opportunity to test his Valg soldiers and the power of the word mark magic. Also, everyone in the king's council picks a champion to represent them, keeping the council preoccupied and entertained with the competition, giving the king plenty of time to sneak off and do bad shit. Let's talk lore. In Chapter 23 of Throne of Glass, we encounter the Festival of Samhain, which marks the coming of winter with a grand feast. Celaena observes that the gods and the dead are closest to the... Celaena?
Celaena, are you there?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Is it me you're looking for? Celaena observes that the gods and the dead are closest to the earth this day, highlighting how Samhain is a time when the veil between the spirit world and the living is at its thinnest. This thin veil allows for a unique connection between these realms. The traditions associated with Samhain include lighting bonfires, using bonfire ash as an offering to the gods, holding feasts, and visiting the temple. However, Chaol dismisses these traditions, interpreting the bonfires merely as a way to fertilize the fields. Samhain has its origins in Celtic paganism, particularly in Great Britain and Ireland. Some ancient tombs are even aligned with the sunrise during this period. Celaena's discovery of Elena and Gavin's tomb on Samhain further emphasizes the significance of this night. Initially, she believes it's just a dream, but waking up with an amulet from Elena reinforces the idea that the veil is indeed thin. Today, Samhain is still celebrated from October 31st to November 1st. The festival marks the transition from summer to winter, much like in the book. Samhain is often celebrated with fire festivals, aligning with Celaena's fire-bringing powers. Festivities typically include fiery performances, music, and dance. It is one of the 4 major Gaelic seasonal festivals. Historically, it was celebrated across Ireland, Scotland, and the Isle of Man, with special bonfires believed to have protective and cleansing powers, just as depicted in the novel. It is similar to El Día de los Muertos, or the Day of the Dead. Later in the series, in Air of Fire, Beltane, which is a spring festival, is celebrated. This is our analysis and foreshadowing section, which is not spoiler-free. We'll break down parts of the text that tie into or foreshadow future events in the series. We'll start by introducing a direct quote. So, if you have not read all of Throne of Glass, please do not continue. This is your final warning. We divided this section into 3 parts: Celaena's past, Celaena's future, and our villains. We'll add sections as necessary as we make our way through all the books.
Let's start with some analysis and foreshadowing of Celaena's past. Celaena's eyes are a huge giveaway to who she really is, and Dorian takes note of them several times in this set of chapters.
In Chapter 17, Dorian upsets Celaena. Irritated, she turns away from him. Quote, her turquoise eyes glittered as she stared at his hand, and his heart quickened when her gaze rose to his face. Yes, sweaty as she was beautiful.
Then again, in Chapter 20, as they discuss Celaena's pianoforte playing, quote, well, he said, trying not to get lost in her strange, lovely eyes, I don't think anyone who plays like that can be just a criminal. It seems like you have a soul, he teased.
In the first quote, Dorian takes note of the color of her eyes. Then he describes her eyes as strange, pointing to the fact that they're unusual or stand out in some way.
He's also saying that he's trying not to get lost in them, showing us that she's captivating in some way.
Yeah, she is. There is literally more to her than meets the eye.
You can change your hair, you can change your clothes, but you can never change your eyes.
Her eyes also reflect her connection to her magic and lineage, and it's really interesting that Dorian is the one who keeps noticing them.
AKA those Ash Reaver eyes, baby.
Yeah.
This isn't the first foreshadowing hint we get when it comes to Dorian. In chapter 20, he says, "But there was nothing of the assassin in her face, not a trace of aggression or bloodlust laying across her features. He knew her somehow, and he knew she wouldn't harm him. It made little sense. When they talked as sharp as her words usually were, he felt at ease, as if he could say anything."
I love that he has an instinctive feeling that he knows her, because he does. They met as kids.
Yeah, it honestly really
Little babes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Babies.
Little babies.
It points to a deeper and subconscious connection and recognition of Selena, which we know that she is familiar to him because of this dinner that they had, when they were younger.
Yeah, she's important somehow. And also, he feels at ease around her despite her being an assassin, which really foreshadows the bond that will grow between them.
We love them. Like, in alternate worlds, they would be together.
Yeah. I need the fanfic.
Literally.
It's out there.
There's so much to analyze here in terms of Selena's past too, which she seems to be running from in a sense.
There are two ghosts that chase her, Arabin and Sam.
Quote, "She wondered if Arabin knew she was out of the mines. Would he try to free her if he did? She still didn't dare to face the possibility of who might have betrayed her. Things have been such a haze when she'd been captured. In 2 weeks, she'd lost Sam and her own freedom, and lost something of herself in those blurry days, too."
There's such a complicated relationship with Arabin. He both trained her to be an assassin, but he's also like her only father figure.
Yeah, that's really true. And the horrors that Selena witnessed and participated in at his hand make her who she is today, but also led her into ending up in Endovier.
She still hopes that somehow Arabin is good, but, she later finds out he's the one who sold her out.
And Sam, don't forget him either. R.I.P.
Please. I can't do Sam today.
I
guess we are going to do Sam today.
Yeah, we are. We're going to hit you with another quote. Sam, what would he make of all this? If he'd been alive when she was captured, he would have had her out of the royal dungeons before the king even got word of her imprisonment. But Sam, like her, had been betrayed, and sometimes the absence of him hit her so hard that she forgot how to breathe. She touched a lower note. It was deep and throbbing, full of sorrow and anger.
Big sigh. Selena's feelings are just in complete contrast when it comes to Sam versus Arabin. Sam would have never let her get to Endovier.
Yeah, I agree. And our poor sis, she's just feeling so grief-stricken, and the loss and longing every time she thinks about Sam is just really sad.
And she's wondering what he thinks of her now and if he'd be proud of where she is right now.
I think it's also important because later on in the series, I feel like she still thinks about him.
Yeah.
Even with Rowan. We love Rowan, but even Rowan at one point is what would the assassin think of her now?
Stop.
Okay, sorry.
Why are you doing this?
This moment and the music also reflects the depth of her loss and manifests through low, sad notes.
I just I can see this in my head.
Yeah.
It makes me so sad. Ugh. Okay. Now let's get into Selena's future. Nehemia and Selena become fast friends, and their bond will only grow as the series goes on. But Nehemia has plans for her future and for Selena's. Let's talk about the moment when things start getting weird, literally. Nehemia drops some cryptic hints, which makes us all side-eye her and the word marks. This is a long quote.
This is a long
Buckle in. This is a long quote.
Buckle up, Buster. Okay. Quote, "A word mark," the princess replied, giving it a name in Selena's own language. Selena's brows rose. It was just a triangle inside of a circle. "Can you read these marks?" she asked. "A word mark. How strange." "No," Nehemia said quickly. "They're a part of an ancient religion that died long ago." "What religion?" Selena asked. "Look, there's another." She pointed at another mark a few feet away. It was a vertical line with an inverted peak stretched upward from its middle. "You should leave it alone," Nehemia said sharply, and Selena blinked. Such things were forgotten for a reason. "What are you talking about?" asked Kale, and she explained the gist of their conversation. When she finished, he curled his lip, but said nothing. They continued on, and Selena saw another mark. It was a strange shape, a small diamond with 2 inverted points protruding from either side. The top and the bottom peaks of the diamond were elongated into a straight line, and it seemed to be symmetrically perfect. Had the king had them carved when he built the clock tower, or did they predate it? Nehemia was staring at her forehead, and Selena asked, "Is there dirt on my face?" "No," Nehemia said a bit distantly. Her brows nodded as she studied Selena's brow. The princess suddenly stared into Selena's eyes with a ferocity that made the assassin recoil slightly. "You know nothing about the word marks?" the clock tower timed. "No," Selena said. "I don't know anything about them." "You're hiding something," the princess said softly in Elway, though it was not accusatory. "You are much more than you seem, Lillian."
This is our first big info dump about word marks.
We could definitely get a description on the different type of word marks around the clock tower, and we learn a little bit about where they originated from.
These symbols are just more than marks on the ground. They end up being the keys to understanding the entire magical system that unfolds in this series.
Okay, but also, can Nehemia see Brandon's mark on Selena's face during this part? Kale doesn't really register it, but Nehemia is staring at Selena's forehead like she sees something there.
No, I am convinced that she can see it somehow. Because she can use the word mark magic. She knows how to use it, which I think now I am convinced that she can see it.
I agree, because when we read this back, we were like, no fucking way.
She can see it. I'm convinced. I really am. I think also it's interesting that she straight up calls Selena out for hiding something while, again, staring directly at her Ash River eyes.
Those damn eyes.
Nehemia is she's like, I know what's up.
She's not fucking around. She's really not. We also have this moment in chapter 17 between Dorian and Kale where Dorian's teasing Kale about Selena, and there's so much to unpack here.
The throuple development is so strong in these chapters. This is one of those scenes where the banter is fun, but it's also loaded with underlying tension. Dorian says, "Why would she kill me? I think she likes being pampered. If she hasn't attempted to escape or kill anyone, then why would she do it now? You worry too much." He's clearly trying to brush away any serious concerns. But then Kale, being all business, replies, "It's my occupation to worry."
Ugh, if this is not Kale in one quote, I really don't know what else there is to describe him at this point.
Seriously.
I can't stand him.
And Dorian, in true Dorian fashion, shoots back with, "Then you'll have gray hair before you're 25, and Sir Dothian certainly will not fall in love with you." He's basically planting the idea that Kale might be falling for Selena.
Okay, but here's what's more interesting, is how Dorian is handling his own feelings here. He's teasing, but it's he's kind of testing the waters, seeing how Kale reacts to the idea of them both being into the same girl. I guess bro code or something. I don't know.
Yeah. The love triangle. And then there's Kale's total denial. "Dorian, I don't like her." Come on. We all know what's going on here. He's so deep in denial, it's practically a river in Aurelia.
This back and forth isn't just about them joking around. It's Dorian subtly saying, "Hey, we need to figure out what's going to happen if we're both crushing on this same badass assassin."
Meanwhile, Selena's eating chocolate and reading books in bed. She is not thinking about these two right now. And Dorian even takes it further with that bit about what happens if Selena escapes. He says, "Well, if she does try to escape, which she won't, then she'll break your heart. You'd be forced to throw her in the dungeons, hunt her down, or kill her."
The way that this is basically what happens after Nehemia's death in Crown of Midnight is kind of insane.
Yeah, seriously. And this is Dorian acknowledging that falling for Selena isn't all fun and games. She is a real assassin. She's a threat. She's scarier than both of them.
She will beat their ass.
Slay your enemies. But this little chat sets the stage for some major drama down the road.
This whole throuple vibe that's brewing does end up complicating things even more. All these feelings clash with the responsibilities and royalties as the series continues.
And this scene is the perfect setup for all that drama. It's fun and flirty on the surface, but underneath, it's laying down some serious groundwork for the emotional roller coaster that's coming.
And now, you know what time it is.
Hidden room, hidden room.
Selena stumbles upon one that changes everything in chapter 24. Let's dive in. Selena's laying in bed, moody and sleepless, staring out into the night. She is low-key in her feels. But then she notices something off about the tapestry in her room. She's like, did that just move?
This is how we know she's an assassin, because she goes to check it out. I would just
not
hide.
I would not. I'm just a girl.
I could not do that.
She pulls back the tapestry and there's a hidden door just chilling in the wall. So she pushes it open, and this dark, creepy passage appears. There's this priest that's literally pulling her into this black abyss. It's almost like the castle itself is calling her name. Selena!
Selena!
Come find us.
And that's where we get some major foreshadowing vibes. I love how the passage is described as being silent and dead and completely forgotten. Like you just know this is leading to something huge.
She's descending these dusty, cobweb-filled stairs all by herself into the pitch-black space.
Again, it could not be me.
Girl, same. I'm too scary for all that. It's not just any passage. It's got multiple paths, and Selena's instinct led her to the middle one, where she keeps going deeper and deeper. It's like she's being drawn to something she doesn't even understand yet. She finds herself in this underground area with an escape route leading out the castle. This is where we see her internal struggle. She could, A, bail out, but she decides to stay.
And that decision is so key. It shows how, even though she's an assassin, there's this sense of honor and determination that's going to shape her journey.
She honestly has such a strong moral compass. It's really one of the reasons we love her so much as a character. She never lets her moral compass, steer her wrong, you know?
Yeah. And this is just the beginning of what she finds down there. There's still that mysterious far-right passage with the whispers. You just know it's going to be important later on. This hidden room and the whole secret passage kicks off some serious plot twists that we can't wait to dig into as we keep going through the series. Hidden room. We love a good hidden room.
And that's a wrap for this section. So let's talk about our villains. Boo! But anyways, we don't get too much Valg talk in this section, other than Cain being a freak once again.
In Chapter 23, Selena and Nehemia are following Kale, and as they cross where the clock tower stands, Selena notices something weird. Cain had been kneeling there, and now the dirt is dug out, revealing a word mark in the ground. Selena points it out to Nehemia and is like, "What do you think this is?"
And she's also wondering why the hell was Cain cleaning it?
He's just a neat freak. Just kidding. That is a major red flag. He's interested in the word marks because that's how he's been calling the Ritterak, which is a type of Valg creature, and is using the word mark magic to control it.
This moment is a clue that he's tied into some serious evil forces and has deeper connections to the darkness lurking in the castle.
And lastly, our favorite quotes. These are moments in these chapters that we just really loved.
Quote, "The princess twirled her staff with strength and precision that made him gulp, deciding that he didn't feel like having the daylights walloped out of him. He walked to the rack of weapons and selected 2 wooden swords. How about some basic swordplay instead?" he asked Nehemia. To his relief, the princess nodded and handed her staff to one of her guards, then took the practice sword Dorian extended to her. Selena would not make a fool out of him. I love this quote because, 1, we love a king who can admit that women will beat his ass if needed. And 2, I love that Nehemia is just like a badass princess and she just is like, yeah, I'll fight you. I don't care if you're the prince or not.
Yeah. She's like, I can show you.
Yeah, I'll show you.
My favorite quote is, "The notes burst from her fingers, staggering at first, but then more confidently as the emotion and the music took over. It was a mournful piece, but it made her into something clean and new. She was surprised that her hands had not forgotten, that somewhere in her mind, after a year of darkness and slavery, music was still alive and breathing. That somewhere between the notes was Sam. She forgot about time as she drifted between pieces, voicing the unspeakable, opening old wounds, playing and playing as the sound forgave and saved her." I love this because Aelin, and I'm talking about Aelin here, is so connected to music. It really refreshes her and makes her feel alive again, despite everything she's been through in the last year. And this just makes her so human to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's very real of her to be so connected to it. It also really feels like her version of magic in this moment. Music is magic for her right now.
Yeah.
Which is interesting when we think about Heir of Fire and the effect that music has on her and her magic then. It always has such a strong emotional effect on her, and it brings back memories of Sam.
If you can't tell, we love Sam.
When he gave her the music sheets.
Oh, yeah.
Please, I actually can't today. I'm just going to be sad. She says the sound forgave and saved her, which is just, we all have those songs. So I love that quote.
Oh, we love her. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into chapters 16 through 24 of Throne of Glass. We hope you enjoyed our analysis and theories. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok, where our handle is @BookishRealmsPod.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on these chapters, so drop us a comment or send us a message. Also, leave us a rating if you liked what you heard. It really helps us out.
Join us in 2 weeks when we'll be discussing chapters 25 through 34. Until then, keep reading, Assassins.
Bye!